Welcome into a quick update here on the Thompson'S Take Facebook page and YouTube channel. My name is Matt Thompson, checking in with you for the first time in quite a while. And once again, beside me is Lucas Devine. And today we are going to talk to you about our plans for the future. We are rebooting Thompson'S Take. We realize that we haven't put very much out really within the last year or so, but we have some updated equipment and we are dedicated to rebooting Thompson'S Take, and we will talk about just what the future holds. Also today, going to touch just a little bit on the Kansas City Chiefs and promote some future podcasts, some stuff coming out very soon. One, in fact, we are going to record tomorrow. Lucas, I want to pass it over to you, and I want you to elaborate, if you will, on just what our plans are. You've been a big part of Thompson'S Take really here in the last few years. Since you got back to Kansas City, you were stationed in San Diego in the Navy, and you've joined me several times on the show. And you've really been a big push and a big help to me. And I want you to talk about what you want to get out of Thompson'S Take, what you hope comes of the podcast here in the future, and just some of the plans that you and I have discussed. So without further ado, Mr. Lucas Devine.
Yeah, Matt. So this reboot we have with Thompson'S Take, with all the different kinds of podcasts we're going to be coming out with here, whether it be the Chiefs, Royals, updates monthly, weekly, as the season rolls along. And then Die Hard Sports KC podcast will be coming back with hardcore, in-depth with the Chiefs and the Royals. As we get into March, we have college basketball, obviously, is a big thing in March, and we'll dive into the brackets and different teams as we go through there. Athlete interviews, a lot more. And also, we'd like to get feedback from you listening. We want it to be interactive and hear your ideas for different podcasts that we can do, whether it be golf, NASCAR, whatever you want to hear about. We'll look into it for that.
Absolutely, and local sports will still take priority here on Thompson'S Take. Like Lucas said, the Royals, the Chiefs, those will probably be our two biggest, especially going forward. The Royals are right on the cusp of spring training. Pitchers and catchers reported earlier this week, so we'll be talking quite a bit about that. The offseason for the Chiefs is underway and in full swing. And I mentioned earlier at the start of this quick update here on the Thompson'S Take Facebook page and YouTube channel, Matt Thompson, Lucas Devine talking to you. I mentioned that there is something in the works very soon, a podcast that I'm going to be recording tomorrow. And several of you may remember Drew Doherty is another athlete that's been on the show several times, an athlete and now a coach, another good friend of mine, former Blue Springs South Jaguar, OPSU Aggie, coach, and all-around diehard sports fan, much like Lucas and myself, and also a good friend of mine, Jeff Pollard, who knows a lot about sports. Jeff is always posting about the Chiefs, the Royals, K-State, Mizzou, KU. And tomorrow I'm going to sit down with those guys, and we're going to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs specifically. What a year they had. For the first time ever, a Kansas City Chief was named Most Valuable Player in the NFL, and that would be Patrick Mahomes, as Lucas said, patty cakes. An unbelievable year, 5,000 yards passing, a very humble young man. I say young man, he's only like 4 years younger than me. We'll talk a lot about him. We'll talk about the Kansas City Chiefs offense. We'll talk about the heartbreaking loss that we suffered to the New England Patriots. But the hurdle we got off our back, we beat Indianapolis. We won a home playoff game, made it to the AFC Championship, and I got to tell you, Lucas, I feel like the Chiefs are on the up and up. And you, unfortunately, won't be able to join us tomorrow, but I do want to get your thoughts real briefly here, and then we'll talk some Royals, and then we'll sign off of this quick update here on the Thompson'S Take Facebook page and YouTube channel. Lucas, your thoughts on things that have transpired regarding the Kansas City Chiefs?
I think this year really outdid itself for what everyone's expectations were going in. Myself, I had pretty high expectations for Patrick Mahomes off of last year, sitting with Alex Smith and sitting behind him, and I thought he outperformed anyone's highest expectations, obviously winning MVP and all those touchdowns. And then going into the postseason, it was the most incredible postseason we've had, and who knows how long since Joe Montana, but even more incredible with a quarterback we draft and develop. So that postseason run was huge, and to beat the Colts at home, it was incredible just to be a fan of, and it gives you a lot of hope for the future. it gives you a lot of enthusiasm as we move along. The loss of the Patriots was heartbreaking, but at the same time, you can take a lot away from it. The new defensive coordinator coming in, Steve Spagnuolo, and getting in those new coaches that he's brought in already, I think there's a lot to look forward to.
I absolutely agree, but you're telling me you didn't see your second-year quarterback, first-year starter, breaking the all-time touchdown record that from Len Dawson in his first year as a starter?
Maybe not in his first year. That's that.
I'm messing with you a little
30
bit.
touchdowns. You'd think any really good quarterback. It was fun to see a quarterback who actually really played the position well and different than we've ever seen here, going through our struggles we've had since Joe Montana.
Well, and not only that, it wasn't just 30. What was it, 31 that surpassed Len Dawson, 31 or 32,
yeah.
And then he ends up throwing for 50 touchdowns. Here's what I like about Patrick Mahomes, okay? And like you said, we saw him in the Denver game. He started the Denver game last year, the last game of the season, and you saw a young quarterback. But what I remember watching that game as potential. I did not, however, see him coming out and being as dominant as he was. A lot of that is a credit to coaching. He credits Coach Andy Reid a lot and his offensive coordinator. Again, a very humble guy. And a lot of it also just natural ability for Mahomes and the ability to extend the play. How many times did you see him this year get outside of the pocket, extend a play, and pick up a first down? A lot of times on 3rd and long where he would get out and just keep his eyes downfield and find a guy. This is the type of quarterback that Chiefs fans have longed for. And real quick, I'll talk about Alex Smith. You mentioned Mahomes sitting behind Alex Smith for a year. And I personally thought Alex Smith got a bit of a bad rap while he was here from fans. I know that he wasn't able to get us over the hump.
But just the stability that he brought.
Exactly.
Stability that he brought with Andy Reid, the different level that we haven't seen. I mean, 03 with Trent Green, we saw it, but just a different level of play. And then those weapons that were brought along with them. Patrick Mahomes didn't have a touchdown pass in that game against the Broncos back in 2017.
Right.
He didn't have a touchdown pass, but he had a lot of yards and played well and came back in and won the game. You saw that. You put those weapons around him, he turned into just an MVP.
Exactly. And as great a year as he had, and he's the first to say it, he always credits his offense and the people around him. As good a year as he had, it's a credit to Kelsey and Hill and Sammy Watkins and the guys that were surrounding him. Kareem Hunt for the first part of the year. We won't touch too much on Kareem Hunt and that situation.
Damian Williams stepping in.
Damian Williams was huge at the end of the year. Both Williams running backs were huge for the Kansas City Chiefs. It was a fantastic year offensively for the Chiefs, but as we touched on a little bit, the defense was a headache. And the defense ultimately cost us a trip to the Super Bowl. Dee Ford lining up offsides, and there have been a lot of people that say that was a bogus call. The Chiefs weren't warned.
Right, and even with that, it's still you didn't play great. The whole game wasn't great. You don't have to play. They didn't even have to play great. They had to play good for 60 minutes, 45 minutes.
And let me just throw this out here. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah, sorry to cut you off, Lucas. Let me throw this out here too. That coin toss goes the other way. I believe the Chiefs make a trip to the Super Bowl.
Well, the Chiefs win that game, and that's one of those things that I don't have an issue with it personally, just because it's just the way it's been. If it was a new rule or something like that, but it's always seemed to me that in my personal opinion, when the coin toss, it's tough. It puts so much pressure on your defense, and I never have a good feeling about it. So you don't want to even get yourself in this position.
Are you pro rule change? Because I am. For your MVP quarterback to never even get a chance to touch the ball, to touch the ball and get a chance to win. Now, your defense is up to your defense, who's been on the field all game, and as good as the offense was all year, we'll rave about them a lot.
Now,
but that first half,
I could see where you want a rule change. It makes sense. You talk about but then again, I could see it. I could see. I would personally. I'd like to see the college football overtime.
I concur. Yeah, I'd like
I
to
love
see
the college
both.
football.
What the college puts it? What, 20 or 25?
They put it there. But just having the opportunity.
The opportunity for both quarterbacks to touch the ball, both teams to have a chance to score, not the sudden death, ending of a game, ending of a season.
Or even if you look at these new rules by the new football league, the AAFL or whatever, those rules where you get you get 4 downs, no field goal type thing, just go at it, and that to me even makes more sense than using a coin toss. I don't mind if they change it. I'd like to see if they do change it to college overtime. I don't want to see them change it into, well, you go drive the whole field and da-da-da, and let's do another kickoff and all that stuff. I don't need to see that. Just give them the ball, see whose offense and defense can play hardest in the crucial situation down on their end of the field.
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to see a kickoff or get special teams involved.
I don't need to see them drive the field either.
No, just spot it at the 25. I'm with it. I think we're in agreement here. I think we're in absolute agreement here. Now, like I said, we don't want to talk all that much about the Chiefs. I've got the big Chiefs season review with Drew Doherty and Jeff Pollard coming up. Obviously wanted to get some of Lucas's thoughts here. Let's transition. As I said at the very beginning, Kansas City Royals, spring training.
Yeah.
I'm new look excited. Kansas City Royals, once again, we are in the rebuild stage. It's been, 3-4 seasons, 2014 and 2015, those guys are gone. And last year we watched the Royals really struggle, and they're in full rebuild mode.
As you said, the rebuild mode is true, but they did start a good rebuild last year, I think, with how bad that first half was, but that second half they only went 5 games under 500.
Yeah, they had some guys step up. Hunter Dozier, Ryan O'Hearn, guys that got their chance. Whit Merrifield got a very well-deserved contract, 4 years. It was $16 million, very team-friendly deal. Very good for Whit Merrifield also. They had some guys step up, and I think they can really – they need to adjust some things with their pitching. They've signed – just really here in the last few days, they've signed Brad Boxberger, Homer Bailey, Drew Storen. Now another guy they signed, speedster Billy Hamilton. And Lucas and I were talking a little bit before we came on the air, if you will, about the fact that the Royals are going to try and play a lot of small ball and manufacture runs. They're not going to be a big power-hitting team that's going to hit a lot of home runs, which really, that plays into their hands. It plays with Kauffman Stadium being a bigger yard. They need to be a team that's built on speed and putting the ball in play, much like our World Series teams. You didn't see a guy – now we had power with guys like Hosmer and Moustakas, obviously, but you also had a lot of guys who just put the ball in play. They were speed guys, good athletes, and made things happen. And I think that's what the Royals are aiming for. However, Lucas brought up the point that we really don't have too many guys on the current roster, and we'll see as these young guys develop. We don't want to throw them under the bus before the season starts. They can develop and become better hitters. But right now, you've got a lot of guys who don't hit for high average, don't necessarily get on base a lot, and the biggest thing is getting on base and to manufacture runs.
Well, unless you see a jump from these guys, don't expect a great year unless they make huge strides. Now, I expect them to make, they're not going to all be batting 220 or below. I don't think. I think they'll make a stride. Maybe that's 240. If they were batting 220, then maybe they take it up to 240, 260, and they take it up a step at a time. But yeah, this year expectations aren't quite as high on the division or something, just because I don't know how many teams you can say that win a championship with one 300 hitter and the rest in 220, 230 range, where they average as a team probably 240. So yeah, taking steps is huge, and that pitching. I think their staff in general has improved at the end of last year. I think they'll take a step forward this year. And I think the bullpen hit its low last year. I think it'll improve as well.
I agree. I think they'll have an okay year. I still don't see them being a 500 ball club.
No,
not to be negative.
Not 500.
Not to be negative. I love the boys in blue. I will support them. I will never be a Fairweather fan. That being said, how many of these guys on our major league roster still are a piece of the puzzle 2022, 2023, which is when I believe we will be back in contention trying to win another World Series?
I think it depends on how many guys you actually believe are in that picture, because if you think that a majority of them are, then you should aim at 2020, 2021.
It just depends on me for how they develop. But right now, let's just go around the horn, if you will. Salvador Perez, his best years will be behind him by then. I love Salvi. He's a tremendous player, potential Hall of Famer, not just a Royals Hall of Famer, I think a National Baseball Hall of Famer, potentially when it's all said and done. He will not be here, in my opinion, when that...
Oh, he'll be here, I think. I think he'll be here. I think he'll be... He won't be great. He won't be amazing.
We going to re-sign him again?
Well, I think so. I think it depends.
So what kind of deal? See, we're going to disagree here.
Well,
but that's fine.
I'm not exactly sure on when his contract's up, but I think if
it's
you
after 2021,
if
I'm
you
not
see,
looking at any
right,
numbers right now. But
I think if you see that your team is almost there, you're not going to bring in some catcher who's nothing. He knows how to call a game, and I think that's enough to keep him for one more contract. Call a game, keep these pitchers on the up and up, and I think that alone will keep him on the team for one more contract.
Well, and it should. Okay, let me back up, because what you just said is a very good point. When we were talking about it again, it's another thing we're talking about off the air. For me, Salvador Perez, his average has gone down, right? But he's still, at this point in his career, hitting home runs, driving runs in. 27 homers last year. Did you say 80 RBIs?
I think it was like 28 home runs. But yeah, right around there.
Good numbers, great numbers offensively, especially when you rely on him for Gold Glove defense and like you said, guiding these young pitchers. That being said, now if you get to that point, for me it depends on when you get there. I'm not sure we're getting there by 2021.
Well, yeah, that's kind of a big key to it. They do have some good prospects down that are catchers.
Yeah, and if you get there by 2021, by all means, you want to sign him, and if he wants to come back, absolutely, you want a guy like that on your team. I'm just not sold on the fact that this team that we're putting on the field right now, again, not to be a doubter, I'm just not sure how many pieces of this puzzle are currently at the major league level. Yeah. I look at guys in the minors right now, the guys that we drafted within the last few years, guys like Brady Singer, guys like Nick Prado, those type of guys, Soli Matias, Khalil Lee, the top prospects right now, 1, 2, and 3, Singer, I believe Matias and Lee, all in the top 3 of the Royals prospects right now, in the Royals minor league system, rather. I think a lot of those guys are the guys you're going to be focused on, along with a guy like Alberto Mondesi, who has a chance to be a very, very good player, and you saw it last year. He put some things together, started hitting, started showing just how tremendous he can be as a player in full.
Well, now I want to, so just real quick.
Right.
Hunter Dozier.
Showed some good signs with the bat last year. I believe he only hit about 229, right?
So you're saying he could possibly be on the team for when they make a run.
Hunter Dozier.
He is one of your few third basemen in the system.
27 right now. I don't see why not if he continues to develop offensively. I like his size. I like his power. I think he's worked hard to develop his defense.
We can say Witt would be there. I would say Witt, or you have a Nicky Lopez or someone if he tails off. Alberto Mondesi, you're expecting him to make a jump. Mm-hmm. I think he could be an all-star this year with what we saw at the end of last year. The opportunity's there.
I don't disagree.
Ryan O'Hearn, you can make judgments on him being here. He was better than Hunter Dozier last year. If he's going to be here, he's going to have to make some big progress because he's got prospects nipping at his heels. Chris Owings, no. And the outfield's a whole different story.
Well, your outfield, and the other reason, let me jump around here if you'll allow me to. Another big reason the Royals haven't made a lot of moves this offseason, look at your 2 big deals that'll finally be coming off the books in Alex Gordon and Ian Kennedy.
Facts. 2
likable guys who are taking up a really big chunk of the Kansas City Royals payroll still.
That's true. And then it's going to be who fills those gaps. Alex Gordon's not going to be there for this run. So your outfield's looking like Brian Goodwin's there, Billy Hamilton, Brett Phillips, and Jorge Soler. Out of those ones, there needs to be a lot of improvement because that's where I could see this team kind of getting held back is their outfield because it's got promise, it's got ability, and they're athletic, but are they going to make the jump to be major league hitters? And that's where I kind of am worried. But that's the only place I'd say we're not going to be ready. I think the pitching will be there. I think there's a lot of good pitchers.
I think we focused a majority of our draft picks last year on pitching, and I think Brady Singer's a guy people can be excited about. Another guy who the Royals signed, Kyle Zimmer. A little bit surprised they re-signed him to a major league deal, I believe, as well. And he's a guy, a former first-round pick, who just can't seem to stay healthy. But they say that the stuff is there, and the bloodlines are certainly there for the Zimmer family. Zimmer's brother plays for the Cleveland Indians, in fact, and he has broken into the major leagues in a big way. So going forward for the Kansas City Royals, I'm not slamming what Lucas is saying. I'm just not sure. I guess that's what I'm saying. This year is exciting for me to see some of the young players, not only the young players that have broken into the big leagues, but also the guys that are in AAA and really in all throughout the system, just seeing what they are able to do and what they're able to bring to the table going forward. And let me go back. It's bothering me a lot, our little conversation about Salvador Perez. Okay, I feel like I covered my bases pretty well there, but I'm not saying that Salvi couldn't be a part of the next run. But when I think about catchers, especially in their older years, he's already had some knee injuries. He's a tremendous player. I'm just not sure. It really just depends for me when they get there. Is it 2021 like Lucas seems to think? For me, I think it'll be more like 2023. Because let's remember the other thing. When you look back, when you reflect on the Kansas City Royals' last run, their last bunch of prospects, guys like Hosmer and Moustakas, guys that had to develop. No, once they get here, they're not just going to take the major leagues. And in some rare cases, guys take the major leagues by storm. Okay, but Hosmer and Moustakas had to struggle a little bit at the big league level before they became all-stars. Perez, not so much. He came up and really he's been solid throughout his career. He's special. Lucas, anything you want to add here?
Well, where I'm coming from is their highest prospect that's a catcher, A-ball. Now, yeah, if it's a run for 2023, he might come up. It's very possible. But if you don't sign him to another deal after this, you got to be sure that what you have is going to be equal. That's all it's all timing, and all this is timing, and it's a big question mark because the timing
it's all a guessing game. I think everybody wants to see the Royals return to the World Series, to the playoffs. It really electrified the city. I mean, we saw with the Chiefs just how excited the whole city gets. Yeah. When your team has an opportunity to bring a championship home, it's a special deal. And I'm excited about this year for a number of reasons, but mainly because we get to see young players compete, and we get to see what's in the system for another year.
That's right. And
the other point that I guess I can make is we've done it once now. Dayton Moore, Ned Yost, they know what they're doing. So maybe, as Lucas is, I think, speculating, the turnaround won't take quite as long.
I think we have a better base now.
Fair enough.
A better floor. And I think we have pieces already that could do it. There's people on this team that still have rings. With Salvi, with Danny Duffy, and others.
Who's a guy?
They know what they're doing, and it's a little bit less of just a let's bring all these prospects up type thing, and more of just building the team to where it needs to be.
Who's a guy, Lucas? And we're going to sign off here after this. But who's a guy that you speaking of the Royals, you want to see take a big, big step in the 2019 season?
Well, number one is Mondesi. I mean, he took a step last year at the end of the year. I mean, he can steal bases. I think he leads the league this year in base stealing, barring injury.
Okay. Maybe some competition from Whit Merrifield?
I don't think they'd be I don't think they're even competitive when it comes down to just how many bases I think Mondesi can steal with his speed. It depends on how,
Whit had 45 last year.
And Whit has the benefit of getting on base a lot. So
right.
So that does help Whit. And then now Mondesi, if he takes the step, I think he's the number one, that needs to take a step.
Okay, I will name 2 players. I'm on board with Mondesi. I'd love to see him take another step. Perhaps a wild card, another guy that can't necessarily stay healthy, still has developing to do. He's a big guy, an athlete. Call him Georgie Sunlight, Jorge Soler.
He has to.
I would love to see him, especially with the condition of our outfield.
He has to step up.
And things just being completely in shambles, if you will, or just not in shambles, but everything up in the air with our outfield. I really would like to see him have a full year where he's healthy and he can continue to develop not only as a hitter, but continue to develop his skills as an outfielder. He's the guy we got in the Wade Davis deal.
And I think he's going to be your DH a lot.
I could see it.
Now, that would mean he does have to step up with his hitting. He showed signs in AAA last year when he was coming back from his injury and whatnot that, he can.
He has moments where he shows.
It's translating it from AAA, hitting off minor leaguers to doing this thing. And so I think he's mainly a DH, but he's one of those guys you need to see step up defensively too, if he can, because these guys like Billy Hamilton and Brian Goodwin, they're not your long-term
Brett
pieces.
Phillips.
Brett Phillips, he could be, but he's got to step up a bit. Yeah. I think you give him 1 year to really take a step, and then you got to see something from him next year. But Jorge Soler I think he's probably your number 1 outfielder that needs to take a step forward, whether it be with the bat. He had a rough year last year in the outfield, especially early before his injury.
That's been the knock on him. I mean, he's got a guy with a lot of raw power,
always
but
been an issue.
The defense has been a major issue. He was working quite a bit with Rusty Kuntz, who's a phenomenal outfield coach. And I'm not sure what Rusty's status is. I know he's no longer the first base coach because he was having some issues with his vision. I'm not sure what Rusty's status is with the Kansas City Royals organization. And the other guy that I talked already about was Kyle Zimmer. He's a big wild card for me. Can he be a guy to take another step forward? Or, in the same breath, a guy that showed a lot of promise last year, Brad Keller. A lot of promise. Could be a potential future ace of the staff, in my opinion. And maybe that's a stretch. You can argue with me if you'd like.
No, I think he's got the best potential to. He might even be better than Danny Duffy at the moment. Depending on Danny Duffy, he's such a.
Can he stay healthy? It's another question for you.
Year long.
I love Danny Duffy. I hope he can stay healthy as well. He's got ace stuff when he can stay healthy. Potential ace stuff for Danny Duffy.
Consistency is huge for him.
Absolutely.
And that rotation is going to be interesting. I think our rotation will be better than our bullpen again this year. But that's another whole deal too, where your young guys need to step up. Your young guys that you're bringing in need to come up with Brady Singer and Jackson Kowar. Not just those guys, but you got, like you said earlier, Kyle Zimmer. So it's going to be interesting. That's what the fun of this year will be, and we're going to talk a lot of Royals, whether it be spring training here as we watch all these how the 25-man kind of shakes out as we get into March, and then on weekly, hopefully we're going to plan on weekly reviews and see where our team's at every week here as we go through the season. So it should be a fun one.
Well, win or lose, we're going to be here, and we're going to be diehard Kansas City sports fans, and we will be covering your Kansas City Royals, your Kansas City Chiefs, as Lucas said. Very exciting time for Kansas City sports, especially for the Kansas City Chiefs. This rebuild is exciting, as we've talked about, and what was supposed to be maybe a 5-minute update when we signed on. As you can tell, Lucas and I tend to talk sports on a regular basis. Normally we don't have microphones, but we will call each other and have lengthy conversations, so you'll have to forgive us for maybe being a little long-winded with it, but we are back here on the Thompson'S Take Facebook page and YouTube channel with big plans for the future. Tune in sometime later Sunday. I'm planning to post the podcast that we will be recording tomorrow with Jeff Pollard and Drew Doherty as well. That's going to be a good one, guys. All right, thanks a lot for listening, and look for big things as we reboot Thompson's Take. Thanks a lot.